Welcome to the Radical Responsibility Revolution podcast. This is where we are transforming lives, inspiring you to reclaim your health, your wealth, and the power of your mind. Here we share actionable insights, inviting you to turn inwards and design your life of purpose and abundance.
Back to another episode of Radical Responsibility Revolution. And today we're talking about burnout, body wisdom, and the magic of letting Mother Nature, which I love Mother Nature so much, grab you by the shoulders and say, honey, sit down. Our guest, Karen Richter, didn't choose her awakening. Her body staged a full-blown coup. And I know some of you have experienced this. And after years of doing all the things, carrying all the people, and earning gold stars for productivity, busy. Oh, we love that. We love that gold star. Her system finally hit the big red button, nope, and then forced pause, dropped her straight into the arms of the forest, literally. So we're going to learn all about that. What started as a health scare became a full-on rewilding. Ooh, I love that word so much. Karen discovered the science and the soul behind what happens when women stop hustling, step outside, and let nature do what it's been doing for millions of years. Heal, guide, reveal, restore. Oof, this is something I really, really love. She now leads midlife women, the I have a good life, so why do I still feel meh? That's how we are. She leads them into the forest, the cloud-covered mountaintops, and deeper levels of themselves, deeper than they've ever reached on a treadmill of expectations. So we're diving into burnout as a spiritual awakening, the heroine's journey. Yes, she has her own storyline, forest therapy, rewilding, and remembering who the hell you really are. That secret unfulfillment so many women whisper about, but never admit. If you've ever felt like that, you've been productive pasture land for everyone else's expectations. Karen's your girl. Today, we're talking about finding your true nature by quite literally going back to nature. So let's jump in. Welcome, Karen. I'm so excited to have you here and share all of this beautiful work that you've been doing in the world. But more importantly, I love the idea of nature and rewilding. So we'll jump into that. The first thing I ask every guest is, where are you today? Not physically, but in your life. How is Karen showing up in the world? And how are you serving us on the planet, especially us women?
Well, thank you for that very fun introduction, Debbie, and I'm thrilled to be here. And I love that question about where am I today? And I'm in a really great space because I just returned from an 8-day retreat that I led in Costa Rica, doing exactly what you were talking about, guiding women back to their true nature by spending time in nature. And it was just a lovely, lovely experience. Great women, great food, great experience. So I'm just sort of floating here today. That's where I am.
Well, just to give a little bit of this away, it's one of the places I went to, the campus of Imaloa, and yet it's same guy. And what I love about that, and I want to share that with the community so that they might go on your next retreat, is the food, because it's vegan, which we all think, oh, vegan. Oh my gosh, is it just sensational or what?
I didn't miss meat at all, I love meat.
Yes, exactly. It doesn't.
And I guess it's more than meat. I didn't miss the
Right.
Dairy, the eggs, all of it.
Exactly.
It was fantastic.
Yeah, it's beautiful, but what it is just a way to give that medicine called food into your body, so it really knows how to connect with nature as well, going through all of the things that you did. So share a little bit about that just for the audience so they can get a flavor of what that experience can be like, number one, but number two, about how you are serving women in that way.
So at Verde Sana by Imaloa, we were up in the cloud forest and we really allowed ourselves to slow down. So the first couple days we were resting. And so we did a lot of slow wanders in the forest, taking the time to observe all the beautiful trees and flowers and birds. and really letting that just soak into our bodies. We did some yoga nidra, rest meditation, surrounded by the cloud forest, next to the babbling brook, allowing our nervous systems to reset. Really enjoyed the food. As you said, it was beautiful to look at. And so we allowed our senses, all of our senses, to take in that beautiful meal. And then the middle 2 days were about releasing what we no longer need, what's not serving us, what's standing in the way of our dreams, becoming more clear of who we were underneath all of these costumes that we've layered on us over the years. And then the last couple of days were about rising. So we rested, we released, and now we were able to really connect with our true nature and get excited about what we want out of the next chapter of our lives. So it was really refreshing and rejuvenating. I find a lot of women are at a crossroads in their life, and they're recognizing if they are now in a new role, not necessarily responsible for children or for aging parents anymore, and they recognize they have the ability to make life more what they want. And then they realize they don't even know what they want because they've lost touch with themselves. And so that's where we ended up in our week in Costa Rica, was knowing our true selves so that we can step into this next chapter with our inner wisdom guiding us to our true dreams.
So that hasn't been always where you've been in your consciousness.
Absolutely not.
Right. And so we sometimes hear these beautiful stories of where you are now and imagine, well, it's always been that way, and it hasn't always been that way. And you had a journey of your own to get to this place where you can help guide other women, because we all have our journeys and our stories, and that's what allows us to be those way shower for other women. So tell about your story of how you got to this place of this wisdom and how you understood, whether it be intuitively or some other word you want to use, that this is the natural path. This is connecting with nature is so powerful. And yet we don't allow ourselves that because we're busy. So talk about your journey of trying to outrun yourself. And then how did that create the experience that was the apex, and then how this transformed you so that you now can teach other women?
So I had a life that I think a lot of women can connect with. Externally, everything looked fantastic. I was doing really well. I had a great career. I had a great family. We were doing all the things. I was doing all the things. And I look back now and I recognize that I was placing my self-worth on what I could achieve and what I could accomplish. So I was saying yes to everything and everyone. And that in a way felt very good. I felt good about what I was doing and my abilities. And over the years, I ran into some rough patches and some serious or significant losses. And the way I dealt with that was the way that I dealt with everything. Just keep plugging through. Like, don't let that set you back, Karen. Just keep doing more. Take care of everybody else who's also impacted by these losses. Make yourself valuable that way. I gained a lot of weight. I was recognizing that I wasn't happy, but feeling guilty to even think that, because there were so many things I had in my life to be happy about. Yeah. And so I just kept plugging along. And then, as you said, my body just put a stop to all that. And I encountered a very sudden, pretty significant, very scary health issue that just popped up out of nowhere and really required me to do nothing, to sit around, because my body couldn't handle getting up and being physical, and I had to just lay down. And that was so hard for me, to be unproductive, to be doing nothing. And so I went where I always feel emotionally better, and that's nature. I've always loved nature. I love being outside. And I spent more and more time outside and started recognizing that, yes, it was making me feel emotionally better, but it had a bigger impact than that. And I was feeling physically better and my head was clearing and I was seeing so many benefits. So I started doing a little research and found that that wasn't all in my head.
Right.
There's so much science that supports the fact that nature is a medicine for us. Nature is where we have evolved as a species, and we're not separate from nature. We're actually a part of nature. And it's only been the last minuscule amount of time and the whole timeline that we've been separate from nature, indoors and protected from the elements.
Yeah.
And so that's when I found out about forest therapy. And I went through the certification process to become a nature and forest therapy guide. And one of our sayings is that the forest is the therapist and the guide opens the doors.
Oh, I love that.
So I am now sharing that with other people and allowing them to experience this reawakening, if I can call it that. But I will say I am on such a journey of not just healing from my health issues, but getting even better, getting even beyond where I was before the health scare, and just feeling so happy, so content. So I'm still struggling to find the word to describe it.
Yeah.
But bliss is what comes into my mind
Yes,
often. It's
bliss.
that I just feel this sense of bliss that I haven't felt before.
There is so much to unpack right there. First of all, I did not realize that there was a forest therapy genre. That is so brilliant. Oh my gosh. I'm going to go Google that as soon as we get off because I
Yeah.
love that so much. That is so fantastic. And I say this all the time. We are one with nature. We forget that we are nature incarnate, and then we've lost this connection. So just the idea to go back into it. I want to talk about, though, this idea that women, so many women, and you know this, you talk to them every day, I talk to them every day, I watch it constantly, that we have attached our self-worth. And I believe it's because we got the masculine playbook, which says drive, do. The more I'm doing this, we use doing this as a badge of honor. And it's not in our actual nature. Our nature is to slow down, and yet we do it because that's what we've learned. And so I want you to speak to that, how you speak to your clients, the women that you teach, that how to separate ourselves from this idea that our doingness is not our self-worth, because that really is the key and the crux to all of this. And I see it over and over and over. And it really is just a learning that we have adopted. It's an imprinting. And so I want you to speak from your own words. How do you allow women and help them see that?
You're so true. It's what you're saying is so true. It's this overabundance of masculine energy. And if we think back to the ancient yin and yang symbol, the black and the white swirling around each other, that was all about balance, and that everyone should have both the do masculine energy and the feminine receiving, being, intuitive energy. And society, our families and friends have taught us over the years that it's much better to be doing all that masculine work. And there's a time and a place, and we all need some of that energy, but not the overabundance that we've had. And so when it's going through these modalities, which allow women to slow down and recognize the benefits of this feminine energy, it's not doing nothing. It's slowing down to be awake to other things that when we're so busy doing, we miss. There's a lot that we're missing out on life because we just don't have the time. We just aren't slow enough to recognize it. And that's what's so beautiful about taking people into nature and having them slow down, and they recognize how much they haven't seen in nature before. Even the people that love nature, and they say, hey, every weekend I go hiking, but it's often in a doing kind of energy. You know, can I go to the top of this summit? Can I do more miles than I did last weekend? And they miss things. And so then when we slow down, they say, there's a whole forest, or there's a whole desert, or there's a whole scene here that I have been missing. And then the light bulb goes off of, how is that true in my life overall? What am I missing in my life because I'm just too busy doing? And when they recognize that there is another option, it's usually very exciting for them, and they can't wait to learn more and experience more.
I think that's one of the keys, is to allow people to immerse themselves in this experience, or an experience like this, because I don't know if you get the same kind of conversation that I get when I teach about abundance. Because when I'm on a podcast or something, people ask me, so what do you tell somebody who says, I'm broke, I don't have enough, all of the stuff. So the question I can hear coming up for people right now is what they ask you. I'm so busy, because you use that term a few times during that conversation. When they say, I'm too busy, I don't have time to slow down and do this. I've got the kids, I've got the husband, I've got the job, my boss won't let me, and all of these excuses, because that's what I call them. They're the stories that we plan in our head. So what is some of the sage wisdom that you can share now with somebody that has that question? Because I know it's out there.
So I almost hesitate to say this, but it's when we slow down and allow our bodies to recharge and rejuvenate and get clear, we can actually become more productive. We can go back into our lives with more clarity, more direction, and get more done. So the reason I say I hesitate to say that is because my end goal isn't really to get more done, but I know that's appealing for people. I know that's what they're looking for. And I will also say, sometimes people are put off by thinking, I have to go drive an hour to some wilderness and spend 3 hours sitting and doing nothing. And while that's beautiful and that's ideal, and there's really some huge benefits that come from that, it can also be a very short amount of time in your own backyard or in your office with a potted plant in front of you. Like, it could be just a few minutes. And if you want to get scientific about it, the studies show that even a few minutes of doing this mindful interaction with nature, our blood pressure goes down, our cortisol levels go down. And cortisol, we're hearing so much about that these days, and that's especially for women, we tend to create too much cortisol, and it wreaks havoc on our bodies. Just a few minutes with nature can help with the cortisol, can help with your heart rate, can help cognitively. So it doesn't have to be a big time burden for them.
I love the fact that you're sharing that it can be incremental, because so many people can't get their minds wrapped around, as you said, for a 3-hour trip to go hang out in nature. And who wrote the micro Atomic Habits? So he talks about small incremental changes,
Right.
and that is so important. If somebody could hear what you just said, you can sit at your desk with a potted plant, a real potted plant, not a plastic one, because it's really that connection with nature. And I love the fact that science has finally been able to give us the biofeedback that this stuff works. It isn't woo woo. I've been called woo woo my whole life. It isn't woo woo. It's science, folks. And so to know that this is how this meat stick operates, this is what it wants, we begin to give it more of that. And one of the things you said, I'm afraid I'm almost hesitant to say it, is because we have built this success quotient. Busy equals success. And I've always said you have to go slow to go fast. And one of the things my next book is called Time Bender. Once we start a process like this, then time actually seems to slow down. It seems to bend.
Yeah,
Have you noticed that? When you can create these containers for ourselves, then time actually slows down because you're not
absolutely.
trying to lap yourself all the time. So what a brilliant notion that before you had this turning point, before you had this moment of clarity, what do you think besides the your body said no? Because a lot of women get to this place, and this is what I see in women mostly, is that they burn themselves out. But the only reason they realize they burned themselves out was because their body rebels. It just rebels. I got rectal cancer. It's like, oh, okay. What is it trying to tell me? So where do you think the connection for you was when your body said no, but you had this somewhere, a small voice or an intuition said, this is the new path. I'm doing this because you will not slow down by yourself. Tell us about that. I want to call it a spiritual awakening. That's the way the terms that I use. But talk about that, how that felt, what your intuitive guidance was for you at that moment.
So it's an interesting question. And I'm thinking back to the time that I was spending outdoors and just feeling so much better in so many ways, so many facets. And a story or a memory came to me of years prior where I had an experience where I felt completely immersed and welcomed and enveloped by nature. And this was, I have always loved swimming and have had the benefit I've been blessed enough to go snorkeling on coral reefs throughout my life. And I just absolutely love that, to be looking down on these beautiful fish and colors of the ocean. It was just amazing. And so then I had an opportunity to become certified in scuba diving. And I thought, how could it be any better than snorkeling? It's not going to be any different. And then I got down deep into the ocean and I became a part of it. And I remember these fish, like a whole school of fish just swimming around me. They didn't care that I was there. I was just a part of the environment. And I felt this overwhelming sense of belonging that I don't know if I've felt ever in my life. And I always just envisioned that as that was a really cool experience. Like that was lovely. But when I was sick and needing to be in nature to feel better, that memory came back to me. And I said, yes, that's what I want. I want to always feel like I'm immersed in my life. I'm a part of my life. Instead of being that snorkeler on the surface, looking down and observing, I want to be a part of my life. And that was a big turning point for me. And that's when I recognized that there's so many women that have that same feeling of, my life is speeding right by. I'm sort of watching it as like I'm watching a movie, and I'm just an observer. I'm on autopilot. I'm a zombie. And I said, I've got the answer. I've got the medicine. I've got the secret.
Oh my
And
gosh. I'm tearing up because that is the essence of us as these human expressions on this planet. That we are, I believe that our soul is always calling us to connect with that oneness. That feeling that you just shared was so magical and such a beautiful metaphor for feeling as if we are part of, because that's what we are. And we have
yeah,
disconnected ourselves so much. And as women, not to say men are one thing and women are, we all are masculine and feminine, but we all got the masculine vibration going on. So it's a little bit challenging that the planet is out of balance. No kidding. But when we connect with that essence, that's really the essence of who we are biologically, it is that immersion that comes out. And it doesn't mean everybody can't do it. It just means that we have really been missing it because that's not our true nature. And I am so gobsmacked by that metaphor. It really is just the essence. We're all searching for it. We really truly are. And we just don't know it. So what a beautiful explanation that women can then say, "Oh, I heard her talk about this. This is what I'm looking for," because we can't find it doing in the busyness. We cannot find it there.
And so often we hear how important it is to be in the present moment. And we may all buy into that. And it's very hard to do. Our minds want to go back or forward and think about these other things. And I find for me, being in nature is that you become awestruck by the things that you're seeing, and you're so focused on it, and the rest of the world falls away, and the past or the past and the future fall away, and you're just in that moment. And so for me, that's the easiest way to get present, is to become immersed in nature.
Yeah. There's some of the words being in the present moment, mindful, and unfortunately, they've been a little bit either overused or poo-pooed by the media. And the truth is that they are so powerful. They are so powerful. And just to extrapolate on the idea, you could do it with a house plant. You can also do it. Everyone has a park. I think everyone has a park by where they live. I have a park that I go to every single day, and every single day I see something new. And I love it when the seasons change. We're now in fall. So, a few months ago it was green, now it's brown and orange and just beautiful. So share about some of the experiences that you led these women through on this retreat, because I want to share what transformation looks like so that people can understand it. It is so important for them to hear what somebody shows up that is been through the busy wheel, and they show up and you take 2 days just to slow down. 2 days just to slow down. That's pretty remarkable. Most
Absolutely.
people don't ever give themselves that, but that's for a reason. So that decompress and regulating our nervous system. A lot of people say regulate their nervous system. Explain how that process, even the slowing down process, how that looks, and how you saw their eyes change, their skin change, their movements change, because I know you can see that, and that's a blessing that you have that gift to see that and share that with people.
So one of the first things I like to do, whether it's, a 7-day retreat or a 2-hour or even a 1-hour mini nature immersion, is help people experience where they are using all 5 of their senses. So we're so in our heads all the time, and observing the world around us analytically in our minds. And so we start with our eyes, typically with vision, and I have them observe. And even just that can be eye-opening for people, to tell them, you have to look at this one little piece of nature and nothing else for right now, and just see what you notice. And they notice all sorts of little things. But then I ask them, or I invite them to close their eyes. And I say invite because everything is an invitation. It's optional. It's up to them, voluntary. I have guidance that I can offer, and they should be following what their body's telling them to do. But I invite them to close their eyes, and then we walk through a series of using the other senses to experience that same place where we are. And that's always so they're doing these with their eyes closed, and at the end I have them open their eyes again, and what I see just in those 10 minutes is already like a lightening of their spirit, and almost a childlike joy, like, oh my goodness, I never knew I could hear so many different birds all at once, or just playfulness. And then I try to incorporate that into the rest of the event, is just, let's come at this with this childlike joy and playfulness. And then, there's all sorts of invitations that I can offer up, and I usually don't know what they're going to be until I'm in the moment, and I'm getting clues from the nature around us saying, this might be fun, or this might be what they need. And so then I invite them to do different activities, and you can see the shoulders relaxing. You can see more smiles more quickly on the faces. You can see excitement when they come back into our brains and start thinking about the future. There's an excitement or a hopefulness about the future that wasn't there before. So it's really, really fun to watch. And I'd also like to say, that's, for me, the ideal situation is to be somewhere beautiful like the cloud forest in the mountains of Costa Rica for a week. But it could be somewhere local. It can also be, I lead these virtually on Zoom. And so people think, well, that doesn't make sense. How can you interact with nature when you're using technology? But the technology is for me to provide the invitations. And then people are dialing in from wherever they are, and they go and interact using that invitation until I call them back. And then we do our sharing on Zoom. So I often ask what people are noticing, and it's fun to hear everyone's experiences. And sometimes that opens your eyes even more, like, oh yeah, I did notice that too. I hadn't noticed it. Hadn't thought about it. And so there's some people who actually love doing this on Zoom because maybe they're just in their backyard. I have a gentleman who says, I walked by this tree every day to my car in the driveway, every single day to go to work, and I didn't pay attention to it. And he said, now I have a relationship with this tree, and I sort of feel like it's cheering me on as I walk by going to work. And so he doesn't need to go to the park. He doesn't need to go on a retreat. This is available to people wherever they are. And I've even done it, you talk about a park. I was with a work group, and we were in a stressful time, and we were out for lunch, and we're in a parking lot, and like every 10 cars there might be a tree in the parking lot. And we did a quick little nature immersion with that tree in the middle of a parking lot. And people went back after lunch saying, I feel so much calmer now. I feel ready to take on the afternoon. So these nature immersions can look very, very different and still be beneficial.
You said something that I keyed in when you're sharing that story about childlike. And what I got this download was, I've had this experience with kids. I'm assuming that people can relate to this. You'll be with a child, and I live by an Air Force base. And so every once in a while there'll be a jet flying by that, and because I just tune it out. There's jets flying all the time. Children have connection with their five senses that we have lost. We have become numb to that.
Absolutely.
And so just the fact that you walk people through this five sensory experience brings us back to our true nature, because that's who our true nature is childlike. And kids just are so curious. That's what we've lost as well as grown-ups. We're not curious anymore. We just are driving, we're going, we've got a space that we're getting to, and don't let anything on the side of me get in my way. So this is so brilliant, the context that you're sharing, that this is about not just slowing down, but engaging your five senses in our natural environment, because now we've lost our minds on these screens. I feel badly for children because they can't even be childlike anymore. They're busy doom scrolling on screens. So what I know that your demographic or your ideal client are women in their second half of their life. And yet this is such an important message for all women, all people, and women especially that have children, because those women are, a lot of them, they don't know what to do with how to get their kids off of these screens. So I don't know if anybody's asked you this question before. I'm imagining maybe a grandma said, I'd like to help my daughter get her children off screens, but I'd like to know what kind of wisdom you could share with a young mom, even though that's not who I usually talk to. But I think that's important for us, because we people of my age, we grew up going outside, being on our bikes. We came in when it was dark. There was no screen thing going on. But this is so important that this next generation begin to incorporate this, not just when we're halfway through our life. So what words of wisdom might you give?
So our generation didn't have a lot of structure, didn't have a lot of guidance, and we went outside and played all day long. The generation that's having children now, so my kids, and I feel a little guilty, but we provided them with much more structure. And there were clubs to be a part of and sports to be playing and play dates. And so now they're trying to replicate that even more for their kids. And what I find is that they feel the need, again, to achieve, to structure, and to have, plans. And what I'd offer up is take a kid to a park, and it doesn't have to be a playground park, a park where you're walking through on a path through the woods or next to a creek, and just let them be. Like the kids, like we on our generation, find the fun. We start to throw rocks into the creek, or we throw a stick into the creek and watch it float down, or try to find rocks that look different as we're walking along the path. Like kids just automatically do that. So the parents don't have to feel that they need to figure out what you're going to do on this walk, they don't have to have it all structured. Just take the kids and nature will do the work. So similar to what I said before about the forest is the therapist and the guide opens the doors. That's all the parent has to do is open the door, and then nature will call out to the kids and say, hey, come play with me.
And it sounds so simple. And it feels like sometimes that when things are too simple, this world
Can't
that we
be.
live in, society says, oh, that's too easy, right? Well, it's like, okay, it's the easy things that are the most profound. That's what's so beautiful about this is just let it be easy. So for all the moms out there, this has been a fabulous piece of wisdom, a truth bomb, if you will. So do that. Now I want to talk about women because you're talking about them being in the second half. There's this whole thing around menopause. So I want to get your ideas about what your version of what that looks like, how not how you would advise women to go through it, but how do you see it showing up in the second half where women, I call it rewiring your wisdom brain, that we begin to see ourselves differently, and yet there is so much noise out there about it's been propagated through press that it's a horrible time, that there's all these problems that you're going to have. It's the big scary monster. And I never found it to be that. So, what do you find when you work with women, number one? But number two, how do you suggest that women navigate that in this fluid way with nature?
So I don't pretend to be a menopause expert
Yeah, I'm not
other
saying you
than
would.
having experienced it myself. Um, and I also did not have a hard time with it. Now, is that because I was spending so much mindful time in nature? Perhaps. Um, but I also think a lot of our whole life experience is on our perspective and how we choose to look at things. And I have a different vision of aging because of the time I spend in nature.
Mhm.
That, like, let's take a tree trunk that appears to be dead. And so in my human mind, I could say, well, now it's worthless. Like it's gone, it's dead, it's not worth anything anymore. It's not doing anything. But when you stop and you look more closely and you recognize that it's a home to so many animals, so many bugs, birds, all sorts of things, that it's decaying and putting its minerals back into the earth, where now around it are all new sprouts of new life. And so, and even, prior to death, just, the wisdom that you talk about, the wisdom that comes, and especially when we start to connect with our true nature and feel comfortable with that, and the inner wisdom that we open up, it's just amazing at how comfortable that can make life. And so I think instead of being angry about changes, we can welcome them. And I admire the cultures that, grandmothers were the pillar of society because they had so much knowledge, they had so much experience. And there's stories in nature of, like elephants that can't find, there's a drought and they can't find water, and they turn to the grandmother, and it's the grandmother that then becomes the leader and brings them back because she remembers that 20 years ago there was water in such and such a place. So there's a lot of messages from nature saying aging is good.
Absolutely. As I was walking in the park the other day, I had this interesting download that people are resistant, as you said, to change. And change is just a natural order of what we do. And nature itself, and I had this thought come up, nature in itself appears to be very brutal. If you watch a National Geographic or any of these nature shows where the lion chases the gazelle and the gazelle has to die, this is nature. And then I looked at the trees and all the leaves are falling off. I thought we have to die to be reborn. This is the cycle of nature. And the way you just described it, that there's what do I want to say? The season for everything. The Bible says that when that log that you described, it's now morphed into another spiritual guide for these other animals. And so when we begin to see everything as all part of the one, as this cycle that we're in, it's a lot easier to incorporate ourselves into that experience. So that was a beautiful, beautiful metaphor, because next time I see a log, I'm going to start looking for all the bugs, because that really truly is what it is. And the wisdom that women especially carry on this planet cannot be earned when you're 20. It comes with being on the planet and serving and being of service to other people. So how would
and I was just reading, you mentioned nature seems harsh. And I was just reading a book called Wintering. And it was talking about the leaves falling off the trees. And so to us, it appears like, it's dead, the tree's hibernating. And what I never stopped to think about is where the leaf fell off. It's an open wound. It's like a place where bacteria could get in. And so the tree very quickly heals that wound. So think of how many wounds it's healing when all of the leaves fall off. And then it's just allowing itself to store and collect and build up all the energy that it's going to need in the spring when it's going to come to life again. And so the leaves falling off can feel harsh, can feel, like things are being ripped off of us when we're going through that kind of change. But our bodies know how to quickly heal the same way that tree does. And if we allow ourselves in winter, especially, to slow down and let our body do what it needs to do and rest, then we'll be ready for the next phase.
Yeah. And then I call it sacred compost. When we go through all of that, the shedding of the leaves are there composting the next generation that's springing up from the earth where it dropped. I've always taken November and December slowing down. Bears go into hibernation. They know it. The trees know it. Nature knows it. We're the only ones that didn't get the memo. So I love this conversation so much. Tell us how we can connect with you, how the audience can work with you, how they can share the experience that you've shared, whether it be virtually or with a retreat. I know I'll put all the links for your website and various things, but do you have something special that they could get started with today?
So sometimes people, going back to your comment of I don't have time, or there's people that say, I'm working 50 stories up in a building, I can't get down into nature. And so what I have to offer is a free downloadable, just 10 minutes, a guided visualization that journeys through the forest, takes us through that slowing down, and you can immediately feel your body relaxing, releasing the stress in just 10 minutes. So people can find that downloadable, beautiful guided visualization on my website at Confident by Nature. And then there are also links for these walks that I provide. And I said some of them are through Zoom, so people wherever they are can join in. And I called it a walk. I prefer not to call it a walk because as soon as I say walk, people think, how far, how fast. It's a meander. It's a very slow movement, but people can sign up for those as well.
Well, that's
amazing. I love to travel. So if anybody says we would love for you to come and do something with our women's group, Karen, I'm always open for a road trip or other kind of trip.
Well, all of those links will be in the show notes. And as we wrap up, I want you to reflect on your future self. She's even wiser than you are right now. And I want you to have her give all of us, especially the younger women, because as we get older, we get a little more wise. And yet she's got some really juicy wisdom to give to this younger woman who's just starting on this path. She's about to follow in the footsteps of you and me and a whole lot of other women with this success energy, that you can have it all. That's the message that's been given. What is your future self, the one who's really super wise? Because you are wise now, and yet I know you can download her because we live in a multidimensional entity. And what would she say to these beautiful women that are just starting on this journey that want to be busy?
Well, such a lovely question. And my first thing that came to me when you asked, what is my future self saying to me? I just felt like that she's proud of me. And she said, I'm so glad that you've been able to experience this and now share it with others. And, almost brought tears. I got chills, and I just thank you for inviting me into that lovely experience. And then what I think she's telling other women is you can have it all, including this slowness, this taking care of yourself, this childlike wonder of seeing what's around you. So we're here on this earth for a very short time. It's such a beautiful earth. Take advantage of everything that's around you. Take advantage of, I'm thinking back to scuba diving. And one of my thoughts when I was scuba diving was, why are these fish so beautiful? Like so many people don't get to see these beautiful fish, but there's so much beauty all around us, and take the time to enjoy it. And you will be amazed at how happy you can become by spending a little bit of time with yourself and with nature.
Beautiful wisdom. So I just want to thank you so much. This has been filled with such magical qualities of where we can begin, and everybody can start right where they are. And check out Karen's website. I'll have all of that in the show notes. You have been absolutely gorgeous and fantastic, and I loved every minute of it. Thank you again for giving this opportunity to all of us.
Thank you. This has been so much fun, and I love your enthusiasm. It's contagious. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, Karen.